and it took the subject seriously. I mean, it was funny, and it had a lot of puns in it, and it was written for an 11-year-old, which was great. But also, it had a tremendous amount of history in it. I mean, he legitimized a very sort of illegitimate kind of movie making that was not taken seriously by anybody but the people who did it. And I think that we all owe him a lot.
Forrest is important, and he's important historically. He's, from the time he was a kid with those other weird kids, Ray Harryhausen and Ray Bradbury, they had a very distinct vision of an appreciation of fantasy, not just as pulp, but as a genuine literary or cinematic art form.
I've got the president on the electroscan.
John Landis has so much respect for Forrest Ackerman that he made him the President of the United States.
Come in, men of Moon Rocket 1.
In his film, Amazon Women on the Moon.
We read you, Mr. President.
This is a proud day for all Americans.
He did a much better job than current president.
Forrest's a natural. In fact, he's been in lots of films. It's sort of a payback for his inspiration of a generation and for being the ultimate science fiction fanatic.
They're running low on liners. You think you can catch up? Don't worry. I'm keeping our spacemen happy, getting things squared away.
While movie makers like Landis work to preserve Forrest forever on film, he has continued to chronicle the history of horror films, even though Famous Monsters of Filmland is long gone. In the Acker Mansion, where the Acker Monster lives, is the greatest collection of monster, sci-fi, and horror movie memorabilia ever amassed.
In 1926, when I was 9 years old, the science fiction magazine jumped off the newsstand, grabbed hold of me, and said, "Take me home, little boy, you will love me."
From there it grew. 3 years after that, my mother was quite concerned. She said, "Son, do you realize how many of these magazines you have?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, I just counted them. You have 27. How can you imagine why by the time you're a grown man, you might have 100?
At last count, Forrest J. Ackerman had 40,000 books, over 100,000 movie stills, hundreds of posters and autographs, and over 600 props, like the famous Dracula ring given him by his friend Bela Lugosi, and the Mummy's ring, a gift from Boris Karloff.
He's collected everything that ever came his way. I mean, if it was so much as a napkin that Boris Karloff used at a bar. And he's got it all in his house. And not only that, he lets people see it. I mean, he has tours, and he lets kids who rob him blind and look at the stuff, you know. I mean, he's a big kid. He's the biggest kid that I ever met. And I hope he always will be.
Here's lurking at you, babe.
To present the award to Uncle Forrest, Rick Baker, Joe Dante, and John Landis.
Why we're behind again. Nothing could give us greater pleasure than to present this award tonight to somebody who's meant a lot to us.
Ladies and gentlemen, Forrest J. Ackerman.
These are 3 little lambs that I led astray. I don't know if you're really able to see this quite clearly. It seems to be the Grim Reaper. I'm wondering if he has a relative called Jack the Reaper. I guess without a pun, you wouldn't have believed it was me. Well, we have the Oscars, the Emmys, and the Grammys. And it appears to me that I probably just received the first Grimmy. So, hooray for Hollywood.
wrote a note to Forrest Ackerman, but it ended up in the dead letter office. Next, the lady who'll kill you with comedy. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
There is a place.
They weren't human.
What were they, Jake?
Where what is real...
Maybe the demons are real.
...meets something you have never imagined.
You're dead. I'm alive.
Dream on.
Help me!
From the director of Fatal Attraction and the writer of Ghost, Jacob's Ladder, rated R. Starts Friday at a theater near you.
As you know, tonight we'll be presenting an award for the best horror film of the year that you, the moviegoer, chose. All nominees were selected by the editors of Fangoria magazine. The winner was determined through a national poll of votes cast by moviegoers attending Cineplex Odeon Theaters, the nation's leading innovative theater circuit, with more than 1,700 screens in the U.S. and Canada. The poll was conducted in conjunction with Movies USA magazine, the #1 in-theater magazine for moviegoers. The results from this exclusive Cineplex Odeon poll have been tabulated and will be announced later in the show. Now, let's take a look at a movie whose stars have great legs. I'm sorry. 8 legs. Our third nominated film, Arachnophobia.
There's a rumor going around that some kind of spider might have killed Sam Metcalf, maybe Margaret, maybe even my Bronco.
Doubtful, Henry. There was a case in Florida where one of my colleagues bumped into a nest of black widows. Sustained over a dozen bites and lived. Of course, he permanently lost control of all of his bodily functions. There's no spider here. But I will hunt down the alleged arachnid and spread him to kingdom come.
Our next guest has been killing audiences for years. Her weapon, a razor-sharp sense of humor. Please welcome the star of the upcoming horror comedy, The Boneyard, Miss Phyllis Diller.
Thank you. I felt so comfortable in that cave, it reminds me of my kitchen. I'm not cut out for housework, I'll tell you that. Fang keeps saying, well, housework never killed anybody. I said, why take a chance? We got a ring around the tub you can set a drink on. Today I used a weed eater on the shower curtain. And, of course, I'm here because I live with a bunch of monsters. Fang, oh, please. Happiest day of my life will be the day I open the refrigerator door and see his face on a milk carton. And then his mother, the real monster. Oh, my God. Oh, I don't know how to describe her. Picture Tip O'Neill in a sundress. Halloween, we don't buy a pumpkin. We put her in the window with a match in her mouth. You talk about old, or Social Security number 2. Oh, speaking of old, the best contraceptive for old people is nudity. And be nice to your children because they will be choosing your rest home. I've already chosen one for Fang's mother, the Charles Manson Healthcare Center. That old bat. She went to the doctor with a pain under her left breast. Turned out to be a trick knee.
Our next inductee is really out of this world.
From Universal Studios Hollywood, the Horror Hall of Fame continues.
Keeping in the spirit of things, our next presenter is a lady who's loved by horror fans from ghost to ghost. From Poltergeist, please welcome Zelda Rubinstein.
In space, no one can hear you scream, but that's not the case in movie theaters when our next inductee burst onto the screen and pioneered a new kind of technological terror. Our sixth inductee is Alien.
You may have figured out my phone yet. Only halfway there. Mother's interrupted the course of our journey. Seems she has intercepted a transmission of unknown origin. She got us up to check it out.
A transmission? Out here?
When Alien, the technological space shocker, was unleashed in 1979, it proved that with a terrifying twist, the classic tale of Monster in the House could still grab an audience. Though the action takes place millions of miles from Earth, for screenwriter Dan O'Bannon, the heart of the story was very close to home.
I wasn't just manufacturing this. I reached into my own self and found what frightened me. And it was fairly grueling to write for that reason.
What O'Bannon envisioned was a 50s B horror movie. But like the Alien itself, the film quickly evolved into something awesome. An $8 million journey into terror. At the helm was director Ridley Scott.
In any material, whether you're doing comedy, whether you're doing horror, whether you're doing science fiction, or whatever you're doing, the nearer you can get to the truth, then the stronger it's going to be.
It was Scott's vision for detail that turned a run-of-the-mill monster movie into an instant classic. The film was shot at Shepperton Studios in England, where an alien world and an entire spaceship was created to turn fantasy into reality, to get the actors in the mood.
Remember how impressed they seemed by it? It seemed to immediately put them into a different frame of mind when they saw what it was they were going to be working in. They saw the seriousness of it.
I can't act. All I can do is use reality, and it was damned uncomfortable in those tunnels that we were working in. It was hot and uncomfortable, and I played the discomfort. And if the discomfort reads as horror.
Every detail of the film was slaved over, from the surface of the alien planet to the alien itself. And it was that fanatical commitment to realism that left audiences quivering in their seats. But it also left the actors a little shaky, because while everything looked authentic, mechanical details like the oxygen tanks in the spacesuits were sometimes overlooked.
They also forgot to put an air hole in there. So we were breathing our own carbon dioxide, and we were dropping like flies.
We had to keep taking helmets off them and on them, and because one of them would say, I'm suffocating, I'm suffocating, we'd start to panic, you know.
Finally, for a lot of the distance stuff, far distance, Ridley's children did the part. So it makes, it's that old process of using smaller people to make the place look bigger. And once his child passed out, they started realizing something was really wrong.